Can you just let me share? Oh, it's letting me share screen now. Great. Okay.
No, it's very inconsiderate of us making it 1 o'clock because I don't know about you guys, but my stomach's rumbling.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi everyone. It's good to see you all. Sorry about the technical issues. I'm sure they'll sort themselves out. So yeah, we are talking to you guys today about the Holiday Activity Fund. Some of you have already heard of it. Some of you have already delivered for us over Easter, which is great. But just to give you an overview, it's delivered through the Department of Education, and we're delivering it in partnership with the council. So in terms of what we know the school holidays are really hard for families, and COVID has made that even more difficult in terms of those families that will have reduced incomes, who know that the children have been really impacted quite severely throughout that time. So we know from all the data that's been collected, children and young people are going to have less access to activities because their families just simply can't afford it. And we know that this is going to have like a really huge impact on their health and well-being, and also their education going forward as well. So in terms of who this program is aimed at, much hasn't changed since Easter. We know it's aimed at 5 to 16-year-olds. The primary beneficiaries really are going to be children on free school meals, but we're also going to be looking at those areas of deprivation as well. So if you're running an activity in an area of deprivation, we'll probably include that as well, because there'll be families who aren't on free school meals that are facing the same hardships as well. And we're really looking to try and alleviate the stress around the pressure points for school holidays. This is because we know there is holiday hunger. Now that's become a huge campaign, as we know. Marcus Rashford highlighted it. But we know also the children experience unhealthy holidays. So we know children aren't getting the healthiest meals, or they're not having the same access to a regular hot meal either. So we're looking to provide that through this program as well. And it's really about trying to target those families from lower incomes who are less likely to access holiday activities or have access to fun activities, which is really important as well. So we're going to try and provide some consistency in terms of a really fun activity, B, if there's any physical activity involved in that, that's great as well, and C, having a hot meal or a healthy meal included, or a healthy cold meal. That's going to be the consistency that we need to be trying to provide. In terms of a delivery format, we are looking at a 4x4 model. So for the summer, that is 4 hours a day for 4 days for 4 weeks. And for Christmas, it's the same. It's 4 hours, 4 days, 1 week. So it really is about trying to have positive activities. The guidelines around what is a positive activity, it really has to be fun or enriching. It can be a physical activity, which is fine, or it can be some sort of arts or crafts, or something to do with the natural environment, so like a nature walk or something like that.
And I'm just going to highlight the red. Sorry, the red. We should have removed that one because it isn't red at the moment, is it? So I think it's more amber.
Yeah. It's amber at the moment, but
by summer we're hoping.
Yeah, by summer that will change. Hopefully, with vaccinations and COVID slowly subsiding. But what we will do is we'll provide updated NOI guidelines as that goes along. So when you apply for funding, we can give you that guideline as well. So the guideline for food is either breakfast or lunch or an evening meal. And again, it has to be a healthy meal. We're also going to provide nutritional information this time around, Janet, with a pack for you to have.
Yeah, so what we're doing is working with partners, because obviously lots of you deliver really great positive activities, but you haven't always delivered food. So we're working with public health to develop a framework where they are going to give volunteers and staff training on nutritional information. So there will be guidelines. We're going to be looking at volunteer support, and Sarah from our team and Barnet Volunteering, or Volunteering Barnet, I always get it around the wrong way, are going to be doing some training sessions about how to manage volunteers. So there's going to be a lot of support around this. For those of you that cannot do food, we're also going to be doing a framework where we get food providers, mainly from the voluntary sector, to create a menu option that you will get the funding, and it will be down to you to say, well, we're going to cook 2 days and we want 2 days of food. So it will be down to you to get the food in, but we will do the prep work for you in terms of trying to make it easier. So what we want to try and do is, it's not huge amounts of funding. So what we want to try and do is build in as much support around it as possible, so it gives you less to do individually. So the collected effort will be there to support you. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay.
Yeah. And it's really just about showing you what good looks like. So if you are going out to an external resource to get that food, you have a framework that supports that when you're doing that as well. The same with in terms of having a healthy eating guide, in terms of healthy eating education for the children and young people there. I mean, some of the feedback we had from Easter is the fact that children were being given a healthy meal and they were turning it away because it's not the usual food that they might get. So it shows there needs to be a lot of work around that area. So we'll support that as well. There'll be guidelines from the Change for Life campaign from Public Health, which some of you would have seen with the small figurines. Yeah, the character, it's like a character, but it's that type of branding is it's everywhere, and there's also an app as well and a website.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that we want to try and impress upon you is you can actually think a little bit outside the box. So if you've got older children and younger children, under 8s, there is more problems with Ofsted and over 8. So with Ofsted, you can only do up to 2 hours activity. So we are working with the local authority around that. But for 8s plus, it's about thinking differently. So could you do a breakfast club where you do breakfast and 3 hours of activity? Could you do a lunch club? Or, you know, could you do a lunch club for 8 to 13-year-olds and then maybe a supper club? So from 5 till 8 or 9 for the 13 to 16-year-olds. So it's about thinking about your reach and the young people that you've got to support. So there's nothing stopping you delivering 2 sessions a day to 2 different cohorts of young people. It's about what your capacity is.
Yeah. And we're also going to be trying to help you signpost with parents as well, or you know how you go about doing that. We can try and link you up with various services in the council, and there'll be an opportunity to have some referrals into the council website. So once we know more about that customer journey, we're going to obviously pass it on straight away, which I think will be really important. So in terms of minimum standards, what we're looking for is having that healthy food element. It's got to be the enriching activity. It could be a physical activity, and there's obviously in terms of the nutritional education, which me and Janet already touched on, making sure all your policies and procedures are up to date and in place. We really have to nail that last one because we need to show that we're carrying out all the due diligence to run these programs, especially for yourselves in terms of like insurance liability, making sure there's food hygiene certificates if you're going to do something in place on site, or if you have access to a kitchen. So we will send details of how you can go on that training as well, because the council are going to be providing some access to that training as well, aren't they, Janet?
Yeah, so we're looking for the council and public health are going to do some of the presentations that you can deliver to children around nutrition. So I've asked for it to be fun and engaging. If it's not, we can throw something at them. But what we've asked for is for them to put together a framework of something that you can engage with. Obviously, if you're confident in delivering nutritional education, that it will be to their guidelines, because what the DfE are trying to get across is using this, yes, as fun, but also about an educational program to ensure sure that people eat better. So, you know, in terms of some of the support you will need just to either for yourselves, your staff, or your volunteers. For instance, we've got some mental health first aid training, which is 1 day and 2 days, which we've circulated. So please book on if you haven't, because it is about also building up your skills and your staff skills, and using this program as that that vehicle to do that, especially if we can get some of these courses laid on for you. And I think all of them will be free of charge, but free of charge doesn't mean they don't cost. They will cost to put on, but we're going to get someone else to pay for that.
Yeah, that's great. And then the program outcomes are just really, they don't need explaining really. We just want obviously the children to have access to be more healthy, be more active, be engaged, and have access to enriched activities. Obviously be safe but not isolated, and obviously have greater knowledge around the health and nutrition. We've had some feedback we received over Easter around children, around the isolation, as parents were sending their children on an activity but bringing the food with them. So there is some fear that people still have around COVID, but it really is down to the relationship obviously you build with your cohort and the parents and the guardians, and just assuring them that the activities are safe as well. Okay, and I already touched on this already, but in terms of policies and procedures, we're looking at safeguarding, health and safety, insurance, accessibility and inclusiveness. What I would just say on a side note for safeguarding, health and safety, because with insurance it goes without saying that's going to be renewed every year around the financial year if that's how you're working. But I would say for the policies, make sure you're updating them every 2 years as a minimum, at least, if not every year, just so when you send them to us we can see the dates have been covered, and if anything happens we know that you're covered in that sense as well. So just keep that in mind. That's some of the things that we picked up from Easter, definitely. So in terms of our priorities, what we're looking for in terms of applications is basically provide the highest percentage of children on free school meals. Make sure it's innovative, it's creative, again, it's enriching, and really make sure it's engaging in terms of the food education activities. We had one member who had really fantastic results, Fuse, who did a activity for the older children. So they set up a healthy eating business enterprise, which they worked with a different partner to help with the business enterprise part. And the kids, the younger people on the higher end of that age group, set up a food stall, a healthy eating food stall in a market. So that's some of the ideas that you could get, but just an example of what they're doing, different members. But that I thought that was really good. And we're really going to be trying to find areas of need. So we're trying to find those areas of deprivation in Barnet, which we think will capture some of these peoples, but also those other children, young people that in the high areas of need is going to be one of the criteria that we're looking at in the application as well. Funding format, we're still looking at £9 per child per day for the 4 hours, and that's with food. Without food, we're looking at £7.20. That hasn't changed. I think in terms of training and support, there will be some hubs who have delivered with food provision previously, but we want to try and make sure there's new hubs as well. We'll look at physical activity for children and young people, obviously engaging children with food, skills, and nutrition, and also managing behaviour. So this is why we're putting up some of our mental health first aid training, which is going to be really important. So I encourage all the members to try and get onto it if you're going to apply. And also health and safety in terms of like how to manage recruitment and volunteers. Is there anything else I've missed, Janet? Training support?
Sorry, I keep going on silent. I've got hay fever, so I'm coughing. I haven't got COVID, but I have got a very irritating cough. So no, I think what we will be doing is looking at the needs. We'll be talking to you guys, and if there's training that you think you need, and if we can get a few people that want it, we will look to find it for you. So I think it is about using this period to like upskill ourselves. So yes, the DfE have just given the funding for this year, but I can't see how they won't give it for future years. So it is about investing in getting it right. So we would be on the map for delivering going forward. It is about a partnership approach. So we're also talking to schools about low cost and free premises, because I know delivery space for some of you is an issue. So we are having all of those bigger conversations as well. So if you can deliver but you haven't got a space, then talk to us. If you have got a space but you need extra training, whatever it is, and maybe what we'll do is have, if there's new groups that want to deliver and haven't done it before, maybe we'll put a bit of workshops where we all just sit around the table and talk about the issues that you're facing and solve them together. We will do whatever's necessary to get you to a point where you're confident in delivering. The fact of the matter is we have about 10,000 young people in Barnet that are entitled to free school meals. There's about 6,000 that take it up, because sometimes they get free school meals for other reasons other than income. It will be that the DfE are saying that we can, as long as we can prove that children are in need financially, or families are in need, we have got some leeway, but it has to be the majority on free school meals. So I think it is about positioning ourselves to deliver going forward, really. I say that we're not going to be delivering, but we're going to be championing you guys to do it, because even at Easter, I've had some really wonderful photographs back of the delivery, and it's really lovely to see kids smiling again, because we've had a year of not really seeing anything. So Raki's just put up the slide. This is the darker purple are the most areas of need, and it's no surprise to anyone that delivers in Barnet. So that's the areas that we will be concentrating on. Obviously, we won't be probably putting anything on Totteridge. Deborah, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear to everyone. If your programme is not just free school meals and you've got other kids in your programme, you can still apply for this. You just apply for the proportion of kids that are on free school meals, and you can use other funding towards the other kids that are coming to the programme. So don't discount yourselves if not all your kids are on free school meals. And I'm obviously here to support you with funding bids for additional funding to run your programmes. And there is, like John Lyon's School Holiday Activity Fund, which you can use to pay for the other children who are not on free school meals. So please don't discount yourself. You can use a mix and a blend of funding towards this.
Yeah, and I think it's also about if you do pay, so some organisations do paid for activities in the holidays, which is low cost. You can actually do a mixture. So if some children pay, you could offer 10 places to kids on free school meals, for instance. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. Like Deborah said, you can have a completely blended approach, because we don't also want it to be stigmatizing. That's for the poor kids and the other kids go here. So if you do an approach where you do it in an area and some kids can afford it, then you can do that, not charge for, and you can also use other funding to complement, as Deborah said. So again, this is the heat map of free school meals. And again, it's not rocket science to where the biggest areas are.
So just in terms of Easter learnings, what we had, and I think it's really important for you guys to know, but even before you apply, is really building relationships with schools as well. That's what's helped a lot of the members reach out to those children on free school meals. And again, you can put aside an allocated number of children that you want to target, you know, within your normal provision. But you can work with the school to do that as well, because they're going to know their pupils as well. Because sometimes it can be difficult to identify those pupils that are. And obviously, we're going to be giving out guidelines on social distancing, however that changes and hopefully evolves, and also guidance on healthy eating and frameworks to support delivery. So there's some of the learnings we had as a team and just overall.
And one thing we will say, we are working quite closely with the council's educational department, so we will be pushing your schemes to schools. So we'll be doing quite a lot of the legwork for you, and we've even been given a place for for a school meeting to actually go and present about what we're trying to do, because I will be asking schools what's their community commitment, because I know some schools we can't afford to take their premises because it's just too costly, and we are looking about, you know, how do we, if there's an area of need and there is no venues, how can we subsidize that as well? So we, you know, I would say to you, we're open to all conversations to make this happen.
Yeah, most definitely. And the council are also, they've got their own set of activities on as well. So they are delivering we're delivering in partnership. So they're trying to build relationships with the schools just as much as we are. So it really is a targeted effort from our part. So summer and Christmas, things aren't going to change, hopefully at all. I say it's targeted face-to-face support, again, around those who don't have access to food. But again, it could be flexible, so it could be 2 hours a day over 8 days. And we had one member deliver over Easter for 9 days because it was popular. And we've already touched on the fact that those free school places can be offered alongside those that can afford to pay, but obviously need to be tactful in how you approach that. Time is short, so we need to approve plans really quickly. And in terms of due diligence, just make sure all your policy and insurances is in place, because what we noticed was a lot of the policies we looked at for Easter particularly were expiring because it's the financial year. Just make sure they're ready and you've reviewed them before you submit them to us and they're in date. And also just make sure you're advertising out to your children and young people. Again, one of our members who is particularly embedded in the community was able to have her cohort have other children and young people referred in. So children and young people were just referring their friends in who are in similar situations, which I thought was really great. But I think the key takeaway is just make sure you've got your policies and procedures up to date, and really get on to making some links with some schools as well, making sure you have a good relationship with the school, because they can probably give you access to the venue as well if they want to do that.
Brilliant. And I always end with this because I do think we've got some brilliant, generous leaders amongst our membership. So I'm just going to leave that on the screen. But I'm going to ask you guys for any questions, and I hope that you're going to try and put us on the spot and test us in terms of questions that you need answering. So I'll stop sharing because I won't be able to see who's asking. Or who's putting their hands up. So has anybody got any questions?
I do.
First one I see is Tim.
Hi there. Yes, really interesting. I'm just wondering, with the 4 weeks of delivery and then the delivery at Christmas, so we've currently been speaking to a school about a 2-week programme. Is it sort of a requirement that we do the 4 weeks and Christmas, or is there flexibility?
You can do the summer and then you can decide on Christmas. But what we wanted you to do is be able to tick the box if there's a possibility of you doing Christmas, because we didn't want you to do the form again. So we're trying to save on you doing the form rather than anything else.
Okay, but do we need to do 4 weeks activity in the summer? So do we need to find another school in another 2 weeks?
Yeah, the requirement is definitely 4 weeks, 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. So that's the requirement for each child.
All right, thank you.
Brilliant. But you could team up with another organisation that has space, and do the delivery if they don't want to do it. I was thinking of community focus maybe. Do you know what I mean? There's possibilities because they've got the park and they've got internal space, unless they're running their SEND activities. But we can have a chat. Has anyone else got any questions?
Hello there. Yes.
Hiya, how are you? I
I'm
get
good.
confused now because you're the New Citizens Gateway.
Yes. Hi everyone. We are Barnet Refugee Service and we changed the name to New Citizens Gateway. So we work with unaccompanied minors. So the question is about the flexibility of age. How flexible are we with age?
Not really.
Not
It
really.
needs to
Okay.
be 5 to 16, and only because of the DFE. But you could, if you haven't, apply for the SHAF funding from John Lyons to do the older
did.
age group.
Yeah, we did John Lyons every year. I don't know if we're gonna do it this year, but because we have the YLF and it's quite demanding. So
Right.
this is the first question, but it's changed
Okay.
everything. But I will ask another one because it might be helpful for others, which is in terms of reporting. So what are the requirements for reporting the activities? So do we need to provide any reports?
So I'm going to call Ben in there.
I thought you
because,
would.
yeah.
I was ready for that. We're going to keep with the same. So if you've had grants through us before, it will be a monitoring and evaluation form via our JOT form system. Those of you who've applied before, it's the system you use to do that. That we've kept relatively simple. I think that the thing that you'll find different is because of the DFE requirements, you're required to keep a register of all the people who've attended. That data we collect, we don't deal with it. It's passed to Barnet Council. But because they are
name, date of birth,
yeah,
address,
and that sort of thing, postcode as well.
And there is an example on our website of what it looks like.
Yeah.
I've been
And
reliably
do the
informed.
people has to be in Barnet,
Yes.
like registered in Barnet?
Yeah.
So Brent's got its own funding. Harrow's got its own funding. So you could apply to all of them. Young Harrow is running it for Harrow. I was going to say for Brent, but that wouldn't make sense. But I'm not sure. But Young Brent are involved, but I'm not sure who's running it. But each borough has a HAF. So you could apply to all of them for HAF funding and still run it as one project if you were running it in a central place, because you're quite on the borders, aren't you?
Yeah, we have young people from across London coming to
All
Barnet.
across London. Every single borough is doing it.
Yeah.
It would just be a pain for you
I
to.
know. I think it's not suitable for us. But
Yeah.
last question again for others: how many young people? Like, what is the number? Is
As long as you've got the staff, and we approve what your project is. So as long as you've got the staff to the ratio of young people, and that's we're happy with it. So we sit down with council partners and they look at your project plan and go, yes, that makes absolute sense. We will be trying to visit a lot of the schemes this year. So we might have to get some more volunteers, or else my staff can't have any holiday and they won't be happy with me. So yeah, that will be something we will look at. And I know, sorry, Deborah.
Yeah, I
go
just
to Deborah and then to Gus, because you've got your hand up.
I just wanted to go back to what Tim said about the 2-week delivery. Anybody who was thinking of accessing this and that's become a barrier for you with just, if you're only planning on doing 2 weeks, can you drop us a note to tell us that? Because it might be like we say, we can partner you up with someone else who also wants to do 2-week delivery, and you can do a joint program to cover the 4 weeks. And also it's very interesting for us to get the feedback that if the 4 weeks is a barrier and actually you're only planning on doing 2 weeks, that feedback helps us to plan for the future and what the fund looks like. So just drop us a note either in the chat or send an email afterwards, just to clarify that.
Really helpful, Deborah. Thank you. I'm going to go to the lovely. Oh, sorry. I'll go to Gus, and then I'm going to go to Davina, who's got her hand up.
So firstly, I just wanted to check something about the flexibility. So what we're thinking of doing essentially is offering, we're looking at doing mornings, afternoons, 2 different ages probably, but also we've got 2 different spaces, and on some days both spaces are available, some days 1 space. So we're looking at essentially offering what would be the equivalent of, under that 4 days a week, the equivalent of 8 weeks, so 32 days of delivery. I know that's more than there are days, but some days there's 2 because you've got 2 halls. And then allowing people to choose which they sign up to. And can you do it like that? Can it be that modular? Or do our 2 different schemes, as they would be almost put in, need
I
to be,
think
this
it's
is
2
when
different
one-
schemes, but you're one organisation. So how you manage your
Right.
cohort would be down to you. So I would say common sense dictates, and unless anyone else from my team think I've got it wrong, but I think common sense dictates, you say you want to do 30 children, 50 children, as long as the project and the staffing match what you do and you've got the space to do it. I shouldn't imagine. Ben, were you going to come in there?
Yeah, because this picks up on something Elias just said,
Yeah.
which was around those numbers. Obviously, one of the things where we are at the moment with the National
COVID,
Youth Agency and government guidance is a certain thing. We are extremely hopeful that by the time you come to deliver this in the summer, those restrictions won't be there. As Raki's already said, we will make sure that we update you with this. I'm sure you are over this already. It's not a problem. And in terms, Gus,
it's 21st of June, isn't it, that we're going to get an update?
I think that's when they're talking about, isn't it?
Okay.
The next one's the 17th of May, and obviously the guidance will be changed. One thing that we have found ourselves is that the National Youth Agency only really do like a webinar about a week before those changes come in, because that's as much notice as they get. Do recommend that you sign up to those webinars. We found them very useful in terms of being able to understand what the new regulations are. The other thing, Gus, in your particular instance is, if you're going to do that, make sure that's really, really clear in your description of, and again, it's an online form, as most of you are used to doing, but make sure it's clear that you are planning to do that, to split. You know, we're going to have one bit here, one bit there, but it is under one umbrella. I think that will be helpful to the panel to review, because obviously the panel is going to be made up of people from the council, and I'm not sure who else. Jan, we haven't decided yet, have we, who's on the panel? But they may not know you and what you do. So although we don't want reams of stuff about who you are and what you do, a little bit of explanation around, look, this is how we're going to deliver it, is very helpful.
And the team's in the room, so if you've had conversations with the team, that they can share that extra bit of insight if there's questions. Now I'm going to go to Davina. Have I got your name right? Because it's spelt slightly longer. Sorry, Gus, did you have something else to say?
I did. Sorry, I did just have one other question.
Sorry, I will be back to you.
Sorry, Amelia. And that was just about how it's paid. I know it's per child, but you know, you've said about needing to have the links to these young people. I mean, we're newly going into youth work really now, although with Fuse, which gives us somewhat of a head start. Now, you know, let's say we're going to apply for, let's say, 20 kids. You know, do we get paid then on those 20 if only 10 turn up? What's the mechanics?
There is no clawback. And what will happen is, if you can't guarantee your numbers, the council will put it on their website, so they will advertise your positions too. So there will be, so the council will put it on their website, and already 124 kids have registered, or families have registered their interest for the summer. So already we're getting the message out. If all 6,000 come, we're going to have a challenge, but we are trying to get the message out. Now I'm going to go.
I'm sorry, Davina.
Yeah, but that's not to say that you shouldn't try and reach out to those schools anyway.
Round you.
You are working with your partners. Still reach out to your schools.
Thanks, Gus. I'm going to go to how do I say your name? Davinia.
Davinia.
Okay, Davinia.
Hi, I just wanted to find out a little bit more about the food element of the programs, because we do run camps, but we don't normally provide food, so that'll be a new element for us. Does it have to be a hot cooked meal, or?
Yes.
Okay.
If the majority of the time it does have to be, but
Mhm.
that's why we're working with food providers. So if you haven't got the facilities to do food, or you don't want to do food, then we will be looking at food providers that you can. So what our plan is, there is several food providers that are voluntary sector groups that have got in touch. We're going to ask them to provide example menus, and then we're going to get public health to approve them, and then we will circulate to everyone who's booked on to deliver holiday activities that can't do food, and then you negotiate with them what you want. So it's worked well in other boroughs where people just turn up with hot food for you to deliver, and it could be a big lasagna, it could be, you know, whatever that is, but the majority of time it has to be a hot meal. But because it's summer, there will be, you know, there could be wraps and other things that they do. Or part of your activity could be, if you don't have a kitchen, but it could be about, you know, making a healthy salad. Not sure it will go down well with the kids, but you know, the Rainbow Centre, I always go back to the Rainbow Centre because they have a small community centre and a small kitchen, but they break down their groups and they get some of their kids to help with the vegetables and help with the salads and help with all of those. So that's where the nutritional and food bit comes in. So I don't know your particular circumstances, but the team are happy to have a chat.
Okay.
Jan, just to pick up
Thank
on
you.
in the documentation, we do say if you do have a problem, do get in touch with us to discuss for exactly this reason.
Yeah. But we're trying to get a fallback position for those of you that can deliver great services but can't do the food. So we are working on that as well. And someone else had their hand up, and
Thank
I don't
you.
know the name. It's
ACAS group. Yeah, ACAS group.
Hiya.
Oh, you've frozen up.
Hi everybody. Yeah. Hi. Thank you very much. What it is, I have 2 weeks in August planned, but I'm wondering, I've got some online workshops as well starting
For the summer, if we for the
summer.
Yeah,
well.
for the summer, if it's allowed because of COVID, they want face-to-face because kids have been in. But again, depending on what you're doing, you could join up with someone else.
Okay, so in August, I've got 16 hours over the 2 weeks, but I still need to join up with somebody else to make it 4 weeks, yeah?
The thing is, it has to be delivered 4 days, 4 hours, 4 weeks. That's their model. They won't want to change it. So it has to be delivered every week for 4 hours a day for 4 days a week, because they want to prolong the activity and the engagement with the children.
Just to jump in there.
So it's likely to partner up. Sorry, it's likely to partner up then with somebody else. Is that right?
It could be, you know, I'm not sure what you deliver. What do you deliver?
Yeah, I do sort of singing workshops with breath work and singing for mental health resilience. So I've got the funding from.
Have a chat with Tim.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I mean, currently we've got 2 weeks of activity, so I've got to go back and on the conversations to my colleagues. But let's share details, and then if we haven't got another 2 weeks, we could possibly pitch our 2 weeks together.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll do a quick message to you now. So
brilliant. Share details. That's what we like. We like you all working together. Anyone else got any questions? And I see Bina agrees with me because she's got that smile on her face. Anyone else got any questions? Don't be shy. No, everyone's got an answer. And I know, Steve, I keep putting you on the spot because I keep talking about the Rainbow Centre. But they also have a model where they have paid staff and they have floating volunteers that work quite well. And again, we're going to work with Volunteering Barnet to get some trained volunteers that if you need volunteers, we'll assign them to you. But then they become your volunteers, not ours. So we are going to do some work. Davinia again. See, I got it right that time.
So I just wanted to also ask about space. The way that we normally work is we hire schools, but we normally pay for the schools, and then the parents pay for the activities. But with the funding, we wouldn't necessarily be able to afford to hire the school spaces that we normally hire. Is there any help or support towards the actual higher cost of the space?
It will depend on your activity and the needs. So I would suggest that you just have a conversation with either Deborah or Ben about what you're planning to deliver. They will feed it in. We have, I can't tell you how many weekly meetings we're having trying to plan this at the moment. Or it'd probably be best in this instance to speak to Raki so she can record it, and then we can start thinking about what your delivery looks like in terms of the Barnet, that like the helicopter view of Barnet.
Jan, that
Great,
sort of
thank
leads
you.
on perfectly to just a general point around, so obviously the documentation's up on our website already. One of the things that we put in is an expression of interest form. So even if you've got to go away and have these discussions with other people and you can't complete your application, if you could do the expression of interest form, particularly if you'd like big support from Deborah, we just want to get a feel for what that's going to look like so that we can manage our time and any support that you would need. So and yeah, I mean, obviously Deborah's already mentioned the John Lyons holiday fund, and there are other funds out there sort of covering those sort of things. The other thing is, if you're doing it already, as we've said, you can have your paid people and just have some extra spaces that are going to be essentially free spaces for those on free school meals.
You could do exactly, Davinia, do whatever you normally do, and then say we're going to offer 5 or 10 free spaces to those on free school meals, and the council will advertise it on your website. And I'm looking at you, Steve, from the Scouts. I think it could be a really good opportunity for the Scouts to do the younger age groups, because I think I'm not sure we need to have the conversation about Ofsted, but I do think, the Scouts have got a lot to offer, but then it all depends on volunteers and staffing, doesn't it, with you? But we're happy to have a conversation.
Yeah, I think our problem is going to be the volunteering side, because most of our volunteers are parents and they're working, so they only work at nights, that sort of thing. So day activities. I know there are about 6 or 7 groups going away camping, so we might get all that together and book it as one big activity over the district as such. But as a troop, we couldn't do anything like that, I'm afraid.
But it might be worth having a word with Steve Farrell, who is around. Everyone's moved around, because he has 1 or 2 paid members of staff that deliver, and then he has floating volunteers that come in and help him deliver. So the funding might allow you to pay for some staff, and you again could join up with one of the groups who have got excess staff. Not that a lot of people have excess staff, but it's all about mixing and matching. So happy to have a conversation if you think of anything.
Oh yeah, I can supply the kids, just can't supply the leaders. That's the problem.
Okay, well we'll work on that. Has anyone else got any questions or feedback? Harriet, have you got any feedback from you doing the delivery at Easter that you could share?
I think for us it worked very well. It was quite easy, as I mentioned before in the workshop, that all of our young people basically are on free school meals. So I think with our cook as well, because we've got a volunteer cook who volunteers for us. I think she's actually found it a lot easier doing the smaller bubble groups, because we've only got 15 in a bubble group, whereas before she was catering for up to like 30 children in one go. But she's actually found it a lot easier in the smaller group. So if the restrictions,
summer might be a problem.
You might actually be back to sweating again in the kitchen. But
you could mix and match. You could buy, depending on what the cost comes back with, you could say I'll cook for 2 days a week and I'll buy in food for 2 days a week. So that could be an option as well. I think it is about thinking wider and thinking who can help you deliver. I just want to see as much as the voluntary sector delivering as possible. because I think you've all got so much to offer our children and young people. So yeah, I think unless anyone else has got anything further to add, Raki, is there anything we've missed?
I think we've covered it off, and I think it was important for us to share some of our learnings from Easter, which might be useful. Again, if you're only going to deliver, say, for 2 weeks, make it clear on the expression of interest form, because we can either team you up with somebody else, or like Deborah said, give you some support with finding different funding as well.
Okay. So, guys, we're here to plant the seeds, as in our space to grow. So we've planted loads of seeds, happy to answer questions. Just drop one of the team an email and we'll take it from there. So for those of you who haven't lunched, please go and eat. That's what I'm going to be doing. But listen, thank you all for joining us and taking the time out of your busy day. And we will speak to you all individually or collectively soon. But don't forget to book on to the training. Steve, did you want to say something, or are you waving?
No, I was just waving, Jan. Just to say,
all right, lovely to see you.
I would say quickly, I mean, we did have an arrangement with a college to get cooks in.
Yeah.
So the college, the kids that were learning how to cook came and volunteered down at the centre. So
if you could give me the contact, I will follow it up on behalf of the groups.
Yeah, I'll look for it, Jan. Yeah.
You're an absolute star. And see, and that's what I mean about everybody's got something that they can put in the pot to make this better. So any suggestions, not answers on a postcard, but answers on an email would be brilliant. Lovely to see you all, and we'll see you all again soon.